Hello. Yeah, not bad. Welcome to the Royal Television Society's Anatomy of a Hit, The Traitors. So The Traitors was launched in late November 2022 and captivated, firstly, me. I was obsessed with it. And secondly, to be fair, the nation. Clocked up an incredible 34 million views on iPlayer, became the biggest news series for young audiences across all BBC content in 2022. Gone on to get critical acclaim, including 2 BAFTAs for Best Reality and Constructive Factual, Best Entertainment Performance for Claudia Winkleman, as well as 2 RTS awards, the big ones, for Best Entertainment Programme, and again for Best Entertainment Performance for Claudia. My point being, you can't deny that The Traitors was a massive hit. What we're hoping to establish this evening is why and how. And we've got the right people in to tell us. We've got the incredible team of producers behind the cameras and a couple of the traitors who are very much in front of them. So please welcome executive producers Mike Cotton and Sarah Fay from Studio Lambert. From the BBC, we've got commissioning editor for Entertainment and Daytime, Neil McCallum. You shouldn't clap yourself, Neil. Neil is my old boss, so I've sort of got to be nice, but also I might rib him a bit, and I won't be. And our 2 brilliant traitors, Wilf Webster and Amanda Lovett. How are we all, first of all? All good? All good? Oh. Delighted that you're here. I think we're going to, as is traditional, start at the beginning. The traitors originally, seemingly like most good TV formats, a Dutch format, it's either Dutch or Belgian. This is Dutch. When did Studio Lambert first become interested in optioning it? And what about it made you think, yes, this is something that we could land here?
It's a very good question.
Thank you.
I mean, I wish it was my idea, because I'd probably be a very rich person. Yeah. Obviously, Studio Lambert's part of a bigger media group called All 3 Media. And obviously, Studio Lambert, traditionally, we come up with our own formats and we sell them to other companies and abroad. And we do that via our distribution arm, which is All 3 Media International. And the Dutch creators was a company called IDTV. Now, they've made some of Studio Lambert's formats in the past. We've sold them to them. They obviously produced The Traitors in the Netherlands. It was a success. All 3 Media International, actually Nick, who's in the audience, I think probably, came to Studio Lambert and asked if we're interested in the UK and the US rights for it. We'd seen the show was doing quite well and we were interested in it. Partly because I think we've got, as a company, we've got a history of making shows for the UK and the US. We did Undercover Boss in the UK and the US, Gogglebox in the UK and the US, and The Circle more recently, which was a show that we made in the UK and the US but shot it in one central hub in Manchester. So he came to us, we watched the show, Steve and the company over, Tim, myself, and everyone watched the show. And I just think as soon as you watched the Dutch version, if you liked the game, you're into it and addicted to it straight away. And it just felt something totally different to what we've seen on TV recently. There's kind of been a glut of dating shows and entertainment shows and talent shows. And we felt this was something different. It kind of spoke to trust and deception and human nature. So we were really interested in it. We took the UK and the US rights. At the same time, I guess we were interested in the show. We got those rights. The BBC and NBC in the US were also watching that show and tracking how it's doing in the Netherlands. And once we had the rights, they interestingly came to us and said they were interested in it, which is quite different for a TV show, because normally we're the ones banging on their doors and begging to make a show for them. And they came to us and said that they were interested in doing it. And once we got that, we managed to form a partnership where they were both made in the same location, one after another. But I'm sure Neil could probably pick up on what attracted the BBC.
Yeah. It's quite a sort of unusual arrangement, as Mike says, isn't it?
Yeah, I think kind of, the BBC, particularly on BBC One, hadn't had a big reality show for several decades. Saida, who couldn't be here today, was very much kind of keeping an eye out for that in her old role. And we, at the time, had a development deal with NBC, which was looking for the big new kind of reality formats that could sit across the BBC. And then, as Mike said, this idea was starting to gain traction in Europe, and then sort of it became sort of just perfect sort of timing. And so then Saida did a very good job of selling it into Charlotte and Kate, which would probably now be over 18 months ago. And then sort of Studio Lambert started that conversation, as Mike says, with NBC, and it was just a brilliant sort of win on many levels, not least because there was a production hub. It was great that it was set in Scotland. I'm a commissioning editor who happens to be based in Glasgow, so I think one of the things that audiences fell in love with was Scotland and the backdrop, and that's been brilliant to see in the US version as well. And then the production hub, from a financial perspective, just makes absolute sense, and we were very fortunate. We happened to go second, so there's a huge learning curve because you've got all the findings that Studio Lambert have from an international format, then they get to apply it to the NBC version, and then within a matter of days we're filming the British version.
Did you toss a coin for that?
Do you know what? It just sort of, logistically and also talent meant...
I think it was like, it was talent dates, logistics.
We won, basically.
Yeah, the BBC got lucky, maybe, you could say. But what's also great is because you're making it for 2 shows, you kind of get more money. But what that means is that more money to make the show. So we had both budgets, and obviously there was financial savings for the broadcasters in terms of making it from a hub, but it also meant that the overall pot that we had was bigger. So we had a chance to take this format and kind of supersize it and set it in this amazing castle, have these amazing sets, have some great presenters hosting it as well.
Who was easier to work with, the BBC or NBC?
Well, Rick, I think you've made a show for the US.
Yeah, I have, and I've got my own answer. But I'm interested to see what you think.
That's a very good question.
You can pass that to Sarah if you want.
They're both wonderful in their different ways.
Very good, very good. And that's why they're successful. But go on.
I can say that there were very different experiences. In the US version, we had a mix of, I guess one of the things you know about the format is all the other international versions before you made it for the BBC had a celebrity cast. So the BBC was the first time it was made with a civilian cast. And in the US, we made it with a mix. So we kind of had American celebrities, and by celebrities I mean people that were well known in the reality world for being strategic game players, whether it's from Survivor or Big Brother. Mixed with some civilians who sort of were game players in their own rights as well. So it was having a celebrity-civilian mix was very different to making it for the BBC. I think it was probably the US version was a lot more cutthroat. They were all very strategic in the way that they played the game, whereas the BBC version, I guess, had a bit more. It was much more emotional.
There's a lot more heart to it, I think. And I think that a lot of that is testament to the fact that we had a pure civilian cast, and actually the BBC version is the first territory that's done it with a civilian cast. Previously to that, it's all been celebrity cast. So, but that was something that was really important to us at Studio Lambert and BBC. We kind of agreed on that quite early.
And that
doors,
decision was made
we?
really early. I mean, probably about 9 months before we started filming the show.
Yeah.
In as much as tempting as it is to imagine that poster to have kind of well-known UK celebrities, and there's a shorthand there, and quite often that can bring viewers to a show quicker than non-celebs. I think we all realised, having looked at the Dutch format, that that sort of people are more likely to throw themselves into it if they've not got a preconceived public image, and sort of, I think that was absolutely right, and all the feedback from viewers is they just welcome the cast, and actually and Studio Lambert did a brilliant job with the cast. And when you look at the poster, there is a lot of variety there. It's not a Love Island cast, and therefore I think it felt like that was a rare moment to cast 50 years worth of kind of life experience in 22 different personalities, and I'm really pleased that we sort of went down that route because it absolutely kind of landed.
And it's a tried and tested thing we've done with Studio Lambert before in our previous shows. Gogglebox, Race Across the World, very much sets of players or cast that are from all walks of life, all different ages, all races, disabilities, and we love that, and we've seen that response from audiences as well, that they relate to that as well and enjoy it. And I think with a game like Traitors as well, it isn't a Love Island. It is something that, especially the core premise of the show, it's something that all generations have played at some point in their lives, whether it is Wink Murder or Mafia or Werewolf. Those kind of murder mysteries is kind of a tale as old as time. So it's something that we knew that all generations would enjoy watching, but also all generations and different types of people would enjoy playing it. And likewise with civilians, an awful lot of money on the line, 120 grand. That's always going to mean more when you are normal person. It is, isn't it? And you're going to want it more. You're going to be paranoid more. You're going to have that desire to win more. So that was something that we definitely wanted to do on the BBC, and very happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Is it just a case of which territory you're making it for? Because I sort of want to ask, which cast do you think worked better? But maybe, given the different markets, it's not a question that makes sense.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's different, isn't it? Like, I think undoubtedly the decision in the US to have some celebrities in the cast was partly nerves. It's really hard to launch a big... The show actually did really well in the US film. It's great because it's come back for another season there too. They were very nervous about launching a brand new format, having just civilians within it. It's really hard to land a show in the US. And so there was a nerve. They were nervous about doing that. And I think for them, there's a safety in bringing some celebrities into it, means that it got more eyeballs on it. Undoubtedly, within the US, having the celebrities in it got a lot more press for the show. It drew a lot more people to the show. And it added a lot of interest. And so I think it's just the different markets, isn't it?
Would the Americans look at the UK version? Like, I mean, I don't know if it's just that I'm biased, and also because I watched the UK version first. I loved the UK version. I was really excited about watching the American version. And the American version just didn't work for me as well. And I wonder if the Americans would watch it and think, now we've launched it, we could just do it with civilians and it would be better. That's a good no.
I guess, look, they did watch it because both versions, like the US version was shown over here and the UK version was shown on NBC Peacock over there as well. And I think, it's quite interesting. I think it's interesting as a British person watching it because we saw the British version first and undoubtedly the US version had similar games and it was in the same set. So watching that sort of felt like you're watching another thing second time round, not very different. Whereas in the US, they watched the US version first. Yeah. Followed by the BBC version, so it felt like the BBC version copied the US version, it was vice versa. So I think it landed for them. Undoubtedly, I think we did something slightly different. Like Neil said, it went second, so we had the BBC, there's the beauty of learning what we did with NBC, and then we added some new twists, and we did some format, twists and turns, and I think that's a really good learning of some of the things that you can do with the format that will obviously take for future seasons as well.
And Wilf and Amanda, you were members of this cast that we've been waxing lyrical about. And spoiler alert, they were both traitors. But if you haven't watched it by now, I don't know what to tell you. What initially made you want to apply? When did you first hear about it? How was it kind of presented to you?
What do you want to
Well, I seen it on a social media platform. And a mum of five, I was down a caravan, I did a few gins, and I thought, that sounds good. Let's get away for a couple of weeks. So, free breakfast, let's apply for that. And let's pray and hope for the best.
It's the best reason I've heard.
Yeah.
Wilf, similar?
Nah. So with me, it was like I saw it, on social media, because I follow Studio Lambert and I seen, it was just there. So I looked at it and thought, it reminded me of Among Us, which was quite popular a couple of years ago. So I was like, this is something that I think I can play. And I thought it'd be a lot easier than what it was. But that was initially why I thought, give it a go. And it was adventure psychological game show. So I was like, and that attracted me.
And so different that it's not so many reality TV has been about sort of the dating games. You have to fit a certain criteria, certain age, certain size, and this was open to us oldies as well. So I thought let's go for it.
We've actually, I'm thrilled to say, got your audition tapes. So we're going to have a look. I think first Amanda's. I haven't seen this yet. I'm excited.
I am a nice person, honestly.
Well, I was sort of planning to say, and so why did you cast Amanda? You must have seen that tape and been like, well, fantastic.
There was no doubt that we were having Amanda as soon as we saw that. Just to kind of give everyone a bit of a rundown how the casting process works. We have all our applications come in. We've got a great casting team who then anyone that they like the look of will then do about a 40-minute Zoom with them. And then us execs and the channel receive a cut down, like you just seen there, of the best bits of the casting tape. So we get a flavour of who they are. As soon as we saw Amanda and Will, we were like, we need to meet them. And then we go through a finals process where then they meet us execs and then we we have a chat, don't we? But as soon as we met the pair of them, we knew instantly they had to be on the show.
Can I just say on my video, I was really, really, really willing to get on the show. Okay? I really wanted to be on the show, okay? Just give me a chance.
I looked a bit mad, didn't I? I looked a bit mad.
Like, just cast us!
Well, let's have a look, Will.
It's fair to say, my game plan actually changed, though, from there. Like, that was my initial game plan.
Yeah,
and then I come up with the befriend and betray stuff, like, literally, probably a couple of weeks before I went in there, I was like, actually, I think that's not that good. But yeah, so, yeah.
I can see why both of you ended up as traitors as well. I think these two will probably handle it.
We didn't actually cast, just we didn't cast them as traitors. Sort of anyone that we put on the show, we thought they all had the potential to be a traitor in one way or another. So they weren't cast as, you weren't cast as traitors.
Yeah.
As such, you were just cast as players. And that was like a decision that we made further down the line.
How did you make that decision?
Ooh.
It was actually on the first day of filming, wasn't it?
Yeah, the first day of filming, we had an idea of who we thought could potentially
Could
be
be
quite good. And obviously part of our casting process is that there was also, we did various personality tests and things like that as well. But it wasn't until the first day of filming that we actually made that decision, and that was a group decision. It was us, it was also the BBC, and also Claudia as well was very involved. She loved the show, was very involved, and that was sort of like a group decision as to who the traitors would then be.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Claudia, because she feels like such an integral part of the show. And actually, that's one of the reasons I didn't enjoy the US version as much. I think I just missed Claudia. And her persona is such a perfect fit for the show, and you just felt that she was really enjoying it, really invested, really liked the cast. Like, it was just brilliant the way she played it. Did you work with her a lot to try and sort of work out what her angle would be, what her approach would be?
Yeah, we always knew that we wanted Claudia to kind of feel like the lady of the manor. We didn't want it to feel like on other reality shows potentially that, you know, she was removed from the game. We wanted to feel, because we wanted high production values on this as well, we wanted her to feel part of the drama as well. So, and intrinsically part of the castle. So even just seeing her putting the flag up on the first day, or, you know, the stag with the fringe and the eyelashes, all those little touches, we wanted it to feel like Claudia could have been living there, and she was welcoming everyone to the game at that time. So, but we did work on that kind of balance. We wanted that brutalness, and she struggled with that initially, didn't she? She was like, people are going to think I've had a personality transplant. But we always knew she'd bring the warmth and the wittiness, and she's so intelligent and wonderful that we always knew that would come. But it was that kind of that cutthroat nature, and especially on that day one when we saw kind of, nope, you two are going, Kieran and Amos, off you go. You know, that took a little while, but as soon as she did it, she was like, okay, I'm game now. This is
so good as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never seen that. Oh God, I loved it.
There's one part where, like, you get the brutal and the emotional part of a Claudia is when, like, I got rid of you, right? And she come in and goes, why did you do that? And then I just broke.
Well, Claudia.
I just broke. And then she was like, oh, actually, I'm really sorry about that. Like,
She was,
so, yeah.
Claudia was so invested in the game, which is part of the reason why she felt perfect for us. When we first met her, we'd sent her some of the Dutch episodes, and she came in and she was like, I've been up till 4 a.m. watching the Dutch version, and basically wanted to play the game herself. And that sort of filtered through, and I think that's why the performance that she gave on the screen was because she was massively invested in the game. She had a monitor in her room that because Sarah was obviously talking to Claudia a lot. She had a monitor in her room where she would literally come in the morning, just sit and watch all the reality that's happening, and we just had her headphones on the whole time.
Yeah, I'd go in to brief her, right, okay, so you're going in for breakfast, then we're going to do this mission today. She's like, shush, have you not seen? Look, the way into some comments, but she just wanted to watch constantly, and again, that's why you see why it's so authentic and so wonderful on screen, because that's how invested she was.
Yeah, I think it really comes across that it's the antithesis of that kind of parachute someone in and out. Like, she felt completely invested.
Exactly. I had to pull her up one day, though, because there was one round table, and actually it was episode 6, when you two had about to get rid of Alyssa, and I'm in Claudia's ear, and she doesn't say much at all. She sets it up and then lets you guys go, and then just is watching in the shadows. And I could hear her breathing getting heavier and heavier, and I just had to say, watch your breathing. because I could just, she's going to give something away, you know, because we have to be so, and she has to be so above it and not give anything away. So, yeah.
And also one of the things that was absolutely sort of organic, but was just lovely to see, is her enthusiasm during the missions for you guys to win money was just sort of, you know, she was very wary, as you say at the start, about not feeling overly mean. Clearly it's not her money, that's not a pretense that we need to kind of go down. But sort of, she was just yelling from the sidelines. And, you know, when you see all the audience research back, that's quite unusual and really sort of infectious, that she really wanted, whether you're a traitor or a faithful, she could see that you were putting in a shift and wanted you to try and win the money.
What was she like with you guys?
She was
fab, wasn't she?
She was amazing, yeah. And the fact is, like, because we spent obviously a bit more time with her, because we had to film the traitor stuff really, really late at night. But she was really cool with us, and I think she understood the burden that we had at the time. When you first get chosen, you think, oh, this is it, yes.
By the way, Amanda didn't have a burden.
No, Amanda was fine. Amanda was like, oh yeah, what, do you want to murder her? Yeah, cool. And I was like, but she's my friend.
Let's get it done.
Yeah, but yeah, she was just cool, and she understood that, like, at times it was really hard.
And she was supportive as well.
Yeah,
wasn't
100%.
She'd, you know, obviously she wouldn't say much, but she would just give you a little cuddle, wouldn't she? If she was like, she'd come around you and just sort of give you a little tap like that, a bit of encouragement.
That's one of my favourite scenes, when you're on your own, Will, through your own doing, and she walks, you know. No.
He was on your own, by your own fault.
No, but the door goes, and we're all in the gallery, you know, and it's been a long day, and none of us woke up that morning thinking that's what was going to happen. And you know, it's on screen. You're computing what's just happened literally in the previous kind of scenes an hour. And she comes in and she goes, you go, we're all going in the gallery. And it's quite a raw emotional moment.
Yeah, that was like I was saying earlier, that was one of the hardest parts was standing there on my own and thinking to myself, oh, I'm here on my own now. And then she walks in, and whenever she knocks, you're like, something's happening. Like, what are we doing? You're like, oh, not again, why is she here? And the first thing she said, I think it was like, why did you do that? And I was like, I don't know, I'm exhausted.
She was lovely. I mean, I've been asked a lot, you know, did you just see her once or twice? But it was 3 times a day, wasn't it, at least, you know, she was around us as much as she could be.
Even when she was in the missions, it was like, we'd do a mission, and like before, obviously you have to get your gear on and whatever. If you're doing things that are, you have to wear safety stuff, she'd be there, and you could just like shout over to her. Do you know what I mean? But she was cool.
She would be rooting for us all, and she did send us all a lovely letter after it. She took time to send us all a letter which we didn't know about, that arrived to our homes and things. And she didn't, you know, she didn't have to do that. So she was, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was really
absolutely
good.
Lovely, yeah.
How was the gameplay? I'm thinking about the sort of the key elements of the actual game are the breakfasts. So the scene at breakfast where you wait and see who's gone, the banishings, and then the murders. What was that like for you guys?
There's different steps. Like there's different emotions in different parts. So the breakfast was, for me, I don't know about you, was trying to react how you think everyone else is going to react. So it's like, oh, I hope I'm going down to breakfast. Oh, and then you go and you're like, yeah, I'm in breakfast. Like, I'm alive. Like, and then, like, the missions for us were just like a time to relax and take, like, being a traitor didn't exist anymore. It was like just be a team. Yeah. And then watching people at the round table, 2 faithfuls just shouting at each other, and you're just like, oh.
But what I found absolutely mad was everybody would be discussing things all day. So people would be going down one sort of route, going into the round table, wouldn't they? And by the time we'd got from, you know, one room to the round table, it had changed completely. And then on the round table, it would change again. And
it was
wasn't
weird.
It was that quick how everybody's minds were changing, weren't they?
Every minute. And the thing is, everyone was like, coming up with ridiculous theories.
Yeah.
Like ridiculous. And like there was no evidence of most of the things. They're like, I think it's
definitely.
her. She looks like one.
Yeah.
I was like, what does a traitor look like? Do you know what I mean? Where is it? I've seen it in Looking for Traitors for Dummies. It's definitely there.
Tom was my favourite for that, actually.
That episode, I was like so scared.
That's my favourite episode.
Yeah, the red breakfast we call it. So that breakfast, I remember I was getting accused,
was
everyone was
great.
getting accused, and then Tom just accused 3 random people, and then because they've lied about their relationship, everyone was like, actually, you've lied, we've got proof now that someone can lie. Like, I was just like, oh, all right then. Like,
God, I thought this is brilliant. You know, we just get 3 people, and it's just everybody's just going for each other. And I thought, well, we just sit back,
and you
just
didn't
watch
sit
it.
back, she stood up and went, we can't find the traitors, and we're
We
acting
keep
like this.
arguing. Yeah, we keep arguing. We never find them.
And I'm sitting there going, Amanda's got oh, what's she doing? Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, great episode. Great episode. What was the thing that Tom said? He said something like, I'm one of the world's top magic.
Yeah, I can read people.
He reads me.
Yeah, brilliant. So good. The tasks, I think, are sort of fascinating because, in a way, they don't have anything to do with the game. They're just there. And so as a viewer, I suppose there's a danger that you might just think, this is kind of filler, or it's not really relevant. And yet actually, they really worked. And I wondered if you sort of thought about how you would ensure that.
Yeah, kind of. It is hard because it's quite interesting because obviously I loved reading all the feedback on it, and lots of people are like, oh, you should make the missions, the traitors should be trying to like sabotage the missions in some way, it'd be much more exciting. But actually that's kind of the reverse of what we were trying to achieve with the missions. And it's part of the overall format really. The whole idea of the missions is it's the one time, whether you're a traitor or faithful, you come together to build the overall prize fund. You build that money together. It's a break from the game. There's lots of intense chat in that
I can't even imagine. They told us we had to sabotage.
Yeah.
Right.
There's lots of intense chat, but actually lots of the game is designed. There's a psychology behind it. And the psychology behind the missions is obviously that it's the one time everyone comes together. So they achieve this amazing thing together. They bank the gold. They achieve it together. Have this great collective experience. And then they have to go back to the castle and start banishing and murdering each other again. And I guess the whole idea behind that is obviously that it actually, when they do get murdered or banished, it makes the betrayal all the greater because, like, hold on a minute, we just had this amazing experience where we did this and rolled this barrel to the top of a hill and we achieved it. And now, 2 hours later, we're sat around this round table and you're telling me that you think I'm a liar. It made that betrayal, and it made it so much, especially for the faithful, maybe not for so much for you guys, but it made it all the greater. So that was what we wanted to underpin the missions with. And then, and they all developed kind of from there.
It felt watching and kind of thinking about how you were putting it together that the producer's hand is quite light touch, and that's unusual on these kind of shows. Yeah. So I wonder, from your perspective as cast, did you have much interaction with producers about what was going on? Because it felt like you definitely didn't.
Not at all. It was so weird because obviously we're new to the whole TV thing. So when we got to the castle, I remember they were just like, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, and then we was just going around, and then you come accustomed to it quite quickly. You know, people, like I went to get a biscuit in the bar and like this cameramen quickly stand up and I'm like, just get a biscuit, mate. Like, do you know what I mean?
But that's TV gold.
Yeah, it's like, just get a biscuit, mate. But in terms of production, it was the only time you ever really spoke to anyone was like in your interview, weren't it?
Yeah.
In the mid room, yeah. The rest of it was...
Yeah. Well, I think it's just, you know, they brought 22 people, obviously, from all walks of life, different ages, different life experiences, and you could see the different ways their personality interacted on different things by just leaving it free roll. You know, it's like the Red Breakfast, you know. No disrespect, but however good a writer you are, you couldn't have written that, could you?
I agree.
You know, it just was fantastic, wasn't it? But it's just, yeah, it's the way everybody's reacting.
And also some of the learnings that Studio Lambert brought from the international format, which was, you know, if there was 20 people left in the show at that point and we know we've got a mission that needs 4 teams, then because of the paranoia amongst all the cast of playing the game, if we'd created a mechanism that went, you 4 are the team captains, that would have created an unnecessary suspicion, or there would have been an assumed agenda on the producer's part. So you just go, there's 20 of you, get into 4 groups, and it's as free-flowing as that.
Yeah, but it's a very confident way of
was
doing it.
terrifying.
I wonder if, you must have been shitting it a bit. It was letting it happen.
It was terrifying, and actually, it wasn't learning. Like, we went over, obviously, Sarah and I went over to see the Dutch version being made as part of us working out how we can change the format for the UK and the US and how we can supersize it. And we went over there. The Dutch creators were very clear. They were like, this is a game. This isn't a reality show. This is a game. There's a set of rules for this game. You set up the game, and then you let them play it. And we kind of really latched onto that and kept with that. And so we did, literally, we set up the castle, we set up the game space. They all signed up to a set of rules that they signed up to play the game. And we just let them go. And that was terrifying. Like, at times we would sit there in the gallery going, oh my God, what's going to happen? Is this going to go wrong? Like the Red Breakfast, we were there like, what do we do? Do we stop it? Do we let it happen? And so it was terrifying, but also really exciting at the same time, because the game is so strong that it sort of held them within it. And then making the show, it's just a case of how do you do that? If you've not got producers constantly pulling people for chats and taking to different places, how do you do it? So we set up the set in a certain way. There was fixed rig within the castle, so there were cameras that meant we could film people when they didn't necessarily know that there was a cameraman in the room, and they were constantly being shot. We had cameramen that would either hide behind hides so you couldn't see them.
I didn't even know that.
So like, in the round...
The cameraman.
In the round table.
Oh, with the round table, okay.
You can see any cameras.
You can see any cameras
Allowed
at
you
all.
to be in that immersive bubble.
Like in the armoury, you wouldn't necessarily see the cameras. So
There
were various times we should do that. You just didn't know they were there. You just didn't know.
Oh, was it? I didn't even know.
So we would have that, wouldn't we? And then we obviously also tried to, another thing we sort of learned from the original creators was like, psychologically, we were trying to create a psychological pressure cooker in some ways. This is a murder mystery. So we wanted to shoot every episode in a day. So the cast would go to bed at night not knowing if they're going to get killed and not be there in the morning. Then they wake up in the morning, if they survived, they then thought they had to fight for their lives at the round table. So it was like a constant cycle for these guys. So we had that, and within that, we then built with it sorts of rituals so they'd know what time of day it was. So I guess they always knew they'd arrive at breakfast, everyone arrived in the same way. When it's time for the round table, we played a piece of music, and they always walked into the round table and had the music.
Yeah, that piece of music.
It's pretty haunting for them. And then when it was night time, when it was time for them to leave and the traitors were going to strike, we'd play these bongs of like a
Grandfather clock.
Yeah, like grandfather clock, to symbolise that. So these sorts of, it's not like training a puppy, because it's probably the word. Kind of like once they eventually, but like as in like obviously you eventually knew what was going to happen, didn't you? You knew that like there's a certain time of, I'm looking over there because obviously Faye, one of our faithfulers here as well. They obviously had a different role, but they knew what was happening at certain points in the day, and those things help when you haven't got producers who are constantly pushing them somewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like just knowing that the round table was coming. I remember when we'd come back from a mission and we'd eat, and we knew, and we're like, and
The anxiety.
yeah, the anxiety. You're like, it's
Kicking in.
coming, isn't it? The round table, it's coming, and then
Fires would be lit.
Yeah,
Those little fires. There's all
Yeah.
those little touches and mechanisms we put in place right from the beginning, so we didn't need to intervene. We just kind of set the traps essentially, and then let them go.
And also, Amanda, you've said something interesting before, where how quickly things could change from both your perspectives. When you'd finish a mission, it was quite a short window before you'd get to the round table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was honestly, everybody would start talking in the Lambert on the way back, wouldn't they? And we'd sort of like click on to something, and it would totally change, wouldn't it?
And everyone ran up to, who are you voting for? Who are you voting for? Quick, quick, quick. Like, people would run up to each other and go, right, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, we've got, we don't know how long we got, but we got not a lot of time.
Yeah.
So, and everyone would come up with these random theories, and you'd go to the round table, and someone would vote someone, and you're like, pretty sure they were best mates, 5 minutes ago.
Because everybody is trying to save
Herd mentality,
themselves
isn't it?
round
Yeah.
there. So, people would pick on the slightest thing, wouldn't they? I seen so-and-so talking to so-and-so. They were whispering, and so it's got to be one of them.
I remember one day, Imran and Faye, they were walking just arm in arm, and then Meryl comes in. I just seen Faye and Imran with arm in arm.
They must be traitors.
They must be traitors. I was like, I don't know if that's evidence, Meryl. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing we've got this far through without mentioning any of Maddie's theories, actually. I love that girl.
It was so difficult for me because we were quite close in there, and every day she would say the same, wouldn't she?
And it was the same thing.
It's Wilf, and obviously I knew it was Wilf, and he would say to me, she's right, but she's right for the wrong reasons. So we just had to keep
But the thing is, with Maddie, it was she got it right, obviously, yeah. But when she got it right but wrong, and the rest of the people were like, the rest of the cast were like, actually, it's not him. She actually backed off. So if you look at from episode 6 onwards, she actually says it's me, but blames Aaron and Meryl,
Yeah,
and votes for Aaron and Meryl. So Yeah, and all of her best friends were traitors as well. So like, she's like, I know it's Will. Trust me, these people are faithfuls. All of them are traitors.
I think there is a scene, isn't there, where I think she's in between Alyssa and myself, and she actually turns around and says, you know I trust you guys. I know there's no way you were traitors. And we're both just sitting there, either side of her. God bless. She's lovely. She's so funny.
She's amazing. Yeah, she's hilarious.
Yeah. On a sort of practical level, how did you ensure that none of the rest of the cast saw you taking these guys off to do the additional bits of filming they had to do?
I think that's something we can't really discuss, unfortunately.
No, I think no, we can't really.
Drug them.
It was we just drugged them. I think what we can say is that it was like the whole show relied on the secrecy and no one discovering who the traitors were. So that was part of the reason, which was terrifying for us as well. We're constantly paranoid, which is everything. That's why producers couldn't interfere, because if a producer came in and pulled Amanda or Wilf for an interview or a conversation, then a player could go, well, I think they must be a traitor because the producer went to speak to them. So that's part of the reason why also you have to be really hands-off in the show. And then it was just a military operation. There was a huge, making the show up in Scotland. I mean, definitely got to give a shout out to our production team, because we were in the middle of nowhere. So even just getting materials and everything up there was, although it's only Scotland, it felt like it was a huge mission getting Wi-Fi to our set. But and so, we had to ensure that, it said in the show that everyone, when the clock struck, everyone was taken to their individual lodgings so they could no longer communicate with each other, which is what we did. But trying to do that and ensure that was just like a huge military operation. The exact ins and outs of it, we don't want to say because we're making another season. We don't want to give it away. But it was tricky.
From a production point of view, so much is made rightly about duty of care now, and you could see just how emotional and stressful it was for the cast at times. I mean, there's that great moment, and it's really lovely, I think you kept it in, where Aaron just has to go and talk to one of you guys because he's so upset. How did you go about making sure that this show is as entertaining as it is, but also safe for the cast?
Yeah, no, we didn't shy away from knowing that this was a psychological game, which was going to be a pressure cooker. So, and we take our welfare really seriously at the company. So we kind of attacked it from a kind of three-pronged approach, I'd say. It was pre-filming, throughout that kind of casting process. You guys would speak to Sykes. We'd have, say, personality tests. Lots of ways that we knew that anybody that we put onto the show was robust enough to play the game. We wouldn't want to put anyone in there who wouldn't be able to deal with that pressure cooker. But then ultimately, as you do get in, it is going to be emotional at times. And so the welfare continued throughout the whole of the process that you were with us in Scotland. We had our psychologist with us, which you guys would see every other day. And then also whenever you wanted to see him as well. Our welfare team who actually ended up, you guys went through the casting process with them. We thought it was really important to have that consistency in the members of staff that you spoke to, so you trusted us. So amazing, shout out to Bex and Dave, who headed up our casting team and then went on to the welfare team. So we'd like to think that if you guys were ever upset, you always had us there. And fundamentally, we completely understood that it was a really intense
Honestly,
environment.
from our point of view, it was fantastic. And even after, we were still getting phone calls.
Sorry.
No, I was still getting phone calls months and months after, if something would be seen, perhaps in a paper where someone had written something, or they knew we were going to an event. Is everything okay? You okay? How's things? And honestly, it was immense.
Yeah, and even the prep as well, before episodes come out. So obviously, I had some controversial plot moments. So they'd prep me for that and go, look, because obviously we didn't see it till the public seen it. So they'll be on the phone to me the day before, look, this is what to expect. This is what you're going to get on Twitter probably. But do you remember this? And they'd just prepare you.
Remember how you behaved, Will? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember what you did? I'm like, I do.
You're not necessarily going to love this.
But also we made a conscious decision because making a first series is such a wonderful, unique and nerve-wracking experience, and we decided amongst ourselves that we wanted to send all of the cast 2 eps of the Dutch version. Whether they watched it was up to them, just so they understood the grammar of what a round table is. And sort of second time around, which the process that we're on at the moment, it will be very different for that cast. But I think it was just good for you to know, and Claudia was very good at constantly reminding the cast that it was a game. During the casting stage, we had an indication of what we thought a cast member would need to be capable of in order to be a traitor or a faithful, and your team were brilliant at just being mindful about what came with that responsibility.
It's exactly that prep, sending you guys the links. We do our kind of chats with you prior, don't we? To warn you, this is what life might become after a show. We don't kind of sugarcoat it. It's kind of the right act, isn't it? This is what might happen. But likewise, post-show as well, it's that aftercare as well, checking in, as you said, constantly, all in the lead-up and then throughout TX as well. One thing we also did is just to kind of, we wanted to calm all your nerves as well, because obviously no one knew what Traitors was before. It was first series. We actually brought all of the contestants to a screening about a week before, for episode 1, but to a screening about a week before, didn't we?
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Just so that you guys could have seen it for anyone else, and then you can just, from a welfare perspective, we thought that was the best way to go, so you could then actually enjoy that first episode when it went out. And I don't know what you guys thought, but hopefully that was...
For me, it was
I looked
good.
at me and I thought, oh my God,
Yeah,
will you go?
And the thing is, I think like so everybody expected me, like the cast expected me to be really ruthless from the beginning, and they thought Amanda and Alyssa were the really like innocent and nice traitors, and then when they watched first episode, they were like, Amanda, Alyssa, and then it's just like dog eat dog, and I'm starving, and I'm like, and I didn't even see that, and I was like, what? I was like, I'm definitely not the villain at the moment.
I think one thing with welfare, there's also, we have, obviously that we had all the welfare through the shoot, but also post-shoot, we also have a press company that we work with, and I think one of the biggest things post-show is pairing you, we have a press company that these guys met, we're paired up with, just to sort of deal with all of that, because we had no idea the show was going to be such a success and all the press that would come with it. So that's like the other thing that I think is really important, is just having someone to guide you through that.
Yeah, because you never really know like what you're doing. I don't think if we didn't have the PR firm and that to be able to like say this is what you're going to do,
this is the way you should do it, and
it would have been harder.
You just know somebody's always there if you want to phone someone as well, and it is really, you're really looked after.
And also I think what's important, and I think it was evident on screen, but it's just reminding viewers, and Claudia was very good at doing this when times did get tough for traitors and faithfuls, is you didn't decide which role you were going to sort of fill. That was kind of, Studio Lambert and the BBC's choice at the end of the day. And so that helpful reminder that it is a game rather than you...
I had T-shirts with It's Just a Game on there. Like, so when I went back to the hotel, I had T-shirts with It's Just a Game but written backwards. So when I looked in the mirror, so that's what I used to see. So honestly, I used to look in the mirror and be like, it's just a game, mate. It's just a game. Like, and I had a poster printed and everything. I'm not even lying. So it's just
I'm a nice person.
Yeah. I'm a nice person. They're holiday friends. Murder them. I'm only joking.
You mentioned the fact that there is going to be a second series, which I am delighted about. I imagine you can't tell us very much.
No, not really. I mean, we can say
We're in
obviously...
production now, though, aren't we?
We're in production now.
You started casting.
We have started casting, you can say that. Like, there's adverts out for the casting. The game's not, like, the core game is so strong. We're not going to change the core game.
Yeah.
That's, the Traitors is what it is, that's the format. But obviously, it's a murder mystery, so there will be twists and turns. What they are, we're definitely not going to say. But I think it'll be really interesting, because I think all the people that are coming to play it this time around, and we call them players, because we don't call them like necessarily contestants, they're players within the game. They'll all come thinking that they know how to play it. And they've seen what Amanda and Wilf do, they've seen what the other faithfuls do. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens this time around.
I really loved the suggestion that someone made on Twitter, and I was like, yes, I would watch this. Just second series, exactly the same cast.
Yeah, we saw that.
I'll be dead. I'll get banished.
We'd be murdered straight away.
I'll be banished.
Yeah, you'd be up fairly early.
I'll be up.
It would be really good, because all of the baggage. It'd be so good.
Well, you said that last time, but no, I'm going to faithful this time, honestly. I'll be gone straight away.
Yeah, no.
I'm all right, thanks.
No, okay. I can see why you might not want to do it.
I'm going to be watching this one with bottles of wine just lined in my fridge ready.
Yeah, you'll be back on the gin,
Yeah.
Amanda.
Back on the gin.
She'll be applying for the next season.
How long have we got? Oh, yeah, we should do some questions from the floor. Have we got any? Anyone? Yes, very good. Some mic coming over to you.
I just wanted to know, did you have a contingency plan if the traitors got killed? What would you have done?
Oh, good. Well, a traitor can never get killed. They can get banished.
Voted off, banished.
Yeah, there's a set of rules for the game which stipulates that when the traitors can recruit, and obviously they can either recruit via seduction if there's 2 traitors left, or via ultimatum. And we sort of saw both of those in the show. So there wasn't a seduction, there's an attempted seduction in the UK version.
Episode 7, Alex said no, though, didn't she?
She said no. And then when it went down to 1, Wilf got to offer someone an ultimatum, where he obviously offered Kieran an ultimatum. And that it was different. The seduction, they had the opportunity to turn down. The ultimatum was, join me or I'll kill you.
It's subtle.
Yeah, very subtle.
one, yeah.
And so there's the rules of the game that allow recruitment at certain points in time, so that obviously the game would be over if they banished all the traitors within the first 4 episodes and there's nothing left.
And also, I think that the eagle-eyed viewer would remember at the round table in Ep 1, Claudia sort of sets out the stall for the series, which is, whilst we don't specify the number of traitors, and that's all kind of information that all of the cast get, we've made it quite clear that the traitors have got the ability to recruit, because I think there's been maybe other reality shows where you feel like they're changing the goalpost midway through, and you sort of go, oh, does that feel fair, or is it frustrating? You guys always sort of knew that, and if you'd been faithful, you would have been aware of that
At
as
one
well.
point, people were saying there was none. Do you remember? People were like, maybe there isn't any traitors. I'm like, so why are we here? I was like, yeah, maybe that's a good one. That's a good one, yeah. But yeah, people did say,
Yeah, they did.
Maybe there's no traitors. Maybe they haven't picked them. Like, oh, yeah, okay.
That's because we were so good and they were getting all the faithfuls out.
So we have to feed them
Yeah.
traitors. No, I'm joking.
Anyone else? Yes, gentleman here.
Thank you. Thanks for a fascinating insight. Presumably the Dutch have done several series.
Yeah?
Did they try any changes between series that you've learnt any lessons from?
I think what is great is that there's been quite a few international. I don't know, then, Nick, do you know how many there have been now? Or just of the international version? 26 versions. Well, see, there's been 26 versions now made. So there's been like a real... Obviously, every territory's taken it and made little changes and done little tweaks. So there's this sort of great group learning from the types of missions that everyone does and the twists. I think the key game has always stayed the same within them. Undoubtedly, there's been changes. There's the Australian version that was launched where they sort of had money missions, and they had separate shield missions where you could sort of win immunity, I think. So there's been various different changes, which have obviously, and it's great making a second season. We've got our own learnings, and we can also see what's worked in all the other different territories.
Any more? Yes, at the back here.
Did you know the couple, did they audition together or separately? And at what point did you decide to send them in and make their relationship a secret?
No, they actually applied separately. So, and then that was very convenient for us. So we were like, okay, great.
They're surprised when they both turned up. You're like, oh.
But with that as well, we kind of, when we decided we were going to bring both of them onto the show, we kind of, again, we hands off, how do you guys want to play it? We never wanted, if, ultimately they did have a downfall because Tom in the Red Breakfast shouted out, this is my girlfriend. But we never wanted to be involved in his decision-making on that because we didn't want to be blamed if they did end up coming out of the show because that was revealed. So
You'd be embarrassed if that was your decision.
I know, absolutely. So, yeah, we kind of gave them the option to go in and have it open with everybody or to keep it secret.
And that was kind of just one of those sort of slightly unnerving approaches because they could have on the train platform, first day of filming gone, we're actually a couple, and you go, oh, there goes that twist, but it just evolved in a very kind of organic
it was
way.
these guys putting Alex on trial at the end of episode 3 that then led to all of that. So it's lots of nice things lined up.
Great things that happened, obviously. we hadn't planned that Alex would inadvertently flirt with Matt from the moment she sat with him on the train journey, and that developed a brilliant storyline for us as well. It was one of my favourite lines, I think, in shows when there's that whole thing at we call it the Red Breakfast, the whole thing at the Red Breakfast where Maddie just went up to Matt and went, I thought you were going to get this. And it was like, I was like, I love that story. It was brilliant. So it was just those things that obviously we knew we got a great mix of cast. They just played out amazingly.
Oh yes, one more over here.
I'm just wondering, in terms of the format, the international formats, can you elaborate on what you're allowed to do in terms of tinkering with the format versus the format Bibles? And at what point does it sort of veer off so much that it's no longer the same show? Are there rules about how much you can change with the core format in international versions?
Yeah, there are some, absolutely. I think what's been really interesting is we talk quite a lot to IDTV, who are the creators. They've got like a format consultant that works across it, and obviously with All 3 International as well, who distributes it. Together, they sort of oversee the format and make sure we stick to certain things. And I think the key thing is don't change the overall premise of the game. The show is very much about there's traitors and there's faithfuls. The faithful job is to find the traitors and banish them. The traitors' job is to murder the faithfuls and remain undetected. And they don't want us to, and we wouldn't ever want to change that key gameplay. But within that, there's opportunities for there's twists, like there will be twists and turns, and that's just sort of discussion with them to say we're interested in doing this and sort of get their input on it. And half the time we come up with some really mad ideas and we're like, this will be brilliant. And then we talk to the people that have made it, have overseen 27 different versions of it, and they'll go, but have you thought about this, or have you thought about how this would affect the game? And we constantly, invariably, we just always go back to the key set of rules for the game, and if the twist is going to fundamentally undermine one of those key rules, then we won't do it.
One thing we did change, though, from the Dutch version was the end game.
Yeah.
And actually, that's now been adopted on lots of the other territories. So that was something that we were pleased with.
That's quite satisfying.
I know, we were like...
Yeah.
That's right, we have nailed that.
But no, we were very happy with that one. But yeah.
Can I sneak in one more question? I still got the mic here.
Yeah, make it snappy though.
How big is the rig? How many cameras and how many were you filming on at any one time?
Oh, God, that's right.
Wolf didn't even realise there were any cameras.
I thought it was holiday.
No, it's
We're trying to remember how many cameras we've
I think there was about 50. I'm going to say that I think there's about 50, 60 rig cameras, and I guess that was in each room. There weren't that many. I think there were like 3 or 4 in our main reality spaces per room, some in the corridors, but we also had quite a lot of rig cameras in the round table. So in the round table, in the centre console, there were sort of lots of fixed cameras there that could capture people's faces as well.
And then we had our PSC cameras as well that did a lot of the stuff on the missions, and so had about 10 different cameras there as well, didn't we?
We were all based in a gallery, basically. So we had a separate gallery that was away from the castle, sort of up in a stable block almost. And we were based there, and we could obviously watch all the cameras, but we weren't within the same building.
I think we'll do one final question back here.
I'm wondering what you've learned about the appetite of broadcasters for this kind of show, reality-based show. Was it hard to sell? Did you feel like you were competing with lots of other new ideas to a British broadcaster? Or do you think there's a lot of space in schedules still for even more new ideas to come through?
I mean, from a BBC perspective, what was brilliant, it was a pre-existing format, but, at that stage, I think, we were, as we followed the NBC record, but only by a matter of weeks. The Australian one hadn't happened. So it was very early in the sort of the history of the format, if you like. I think the way that Studio Lambert approached it, we had at the back of our minds that this was going to be something that probably would play multiple episodes a week, and just being there on site throughout the records, we kind of knew there was always going to be a cliffhanger because that's what the format delivers with regards to banish and murders. But we kind of had in mind 3 episodes. So if you sort of look at the grammar of the show, at the ends of eps 3, 6 and 9, something particularly dramatic happened. So whilst we didn't necessarily know it was going to be 3 consecutive nights, that was always our dream, because I think to ask viewers to wait over 12 weeks might be sort of, I don't think it would have got the momentum that it got. Likewise, a day one drop, I don't think would have been quite right for this. So actually, that word of mouth and credit to plank PR and all the marketing and all the social, because it was quite old-fashioned. That it launched off the back of the Wales game in the World Cup. Again, BBC Marketing did a really good job. But it was really, by week 3, you were like, oh my God, there's something here that sort of... And I remember one of the comments online, which was sort of like, this scheduling's really old-fashioned. And I almost kind of took sort of glee in that. And then we had this wonderful sort of window of Christmas and New Year when people had the chance to kind of catch up and absorb. So definitely within the BBC, it's created an appetite for more shows like this. I think also, I remember the conversations maybe about 15 months ago where we were quickly sort of sense checking, are we going to do this show where we're talking about murder and banishment? And that could be a barrier for some viewers, this sort of play acting element and the hoods and the flames. But we all were like, if we're going to do this, let's do it properly. And so definitely in a very heartening way, I've only been at the BBC just over 3 years, but the appetite for finding other ideas in this genre, whether that comes through ENTS or Factual or another department, I think it's just opened up kind of doors in a wonderful way. So I think there will be more things. They take a while to get right, but yeah, it's really exciting. Alongside making sure that the second series is building on the success of the first, and I feel quietly confident about that.
Yeah, I think what was great was that we were sort of... I think there was a nervousness that we were going to have to strip out, especially for the BBC, that would have to strip out the word murder, or we wouldn't be able to have the dark undertones that we wanted the show to definitely have. And I think what was great was that we were allowed to. We were sort of given carte blanche to do that and have some fun with it. And I think it was definitely a punt and a gamble to make a show this big and to suddenly put it out 3 nights a week. And it just works. And I think it's showing that you can take those risks, and if you get it right, it works really well.
I think we're going to have to leave it there, but please, big round of applause for Mike, Sarah, Neil, Amanda and Wilf.